So John Fetterman is currently making heads explode because he's a normal dude, right? He wears hoodies. He wears basketball shorts. He doesn't really care about his prestigious position, being prestigious. He's just a normal guy, right? And so they relaxed the dress code in the Senate, probably as a direct result because of Fetterman. And particularly the fact that not only did he have a stroke relatively recently, but he also was dealing with a bout of severe depression. He appears to be getting better, both in terms of his communication skills. He was struggling with that after the stroke, but also in terms of his depression. He's on some medicine now, some treatment, and he's doing a little better. But the right is reacting to the more lenient dress code in the saddest way possible. Now, remember, Republicans have been out there claiming for a while now, hey, we are now the party of the working class. We are now the populists. We are now for the everyman, the blue-collar worker. But then in one fell swoop, they're going to totally bust up that notion. I mean, they've already busted up that notion, right? Trump outsourced 200,000 jobs. Biden is bringing 800,000 jobs, manufacturing jobs back here. On that fact alone, it's like, you're definitely not more for the working class than the Democrats, even though the Democrats have problems. But look at the way that they're going to talk about how Fetterman dresses. And it really just exposes their entire BS game.
Manchin now circulating a petition that business attire has to be worn on the Senate floor. He clearly doesn't think this idea of some members of the Senate showing up in a hoodie, shorts, and sneakers is the right way to go.
Now, let me just point out, Joe Manchin is one of the ones leading the charge on no, we need suits and ties. Joe Manchin is virtue signaling about the fact that he wears a tie, even though he's the man who's single-handedly responsible for getting rid of the extended child tax credit, which means we had an increase of child poverty, a 40% increase of child poverty. He's responsible for that. But he wants you to know he's a serious man because I wear a tie. Well, I'd much rather, you could wear a goddamn G-string. If you reduce child poverty by 40%, I prefer you over somebody who's dressed nicely and screws children.
On the one hand, who really cares what the dress code is
Yes.
in an institution? On the other
Yes.
hand, it just seems sad. It seems like an acceptance of civilizational decline that people aren't ready to have.
So the civilizational decline is not the 30 million Americans who don't have health insurance. It's not the 80 million Americans who are uninsured or underinsured. It's not the 45,000 people who die every year because they don't have basic health care. It's not the 70% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. These are not signs of civilizational decline. These are not. But, oh my God, our leaders dressing normal, that's a sign of civilizational decline. Look, I told you guys my take on it. It annoyed me for a very long time that you have these people in D.C. who are pretending that they're serious. They're dressing like they're serious when they're entirely unserious and corrupt. I would rather have their dress line up with how they do their job. They have a 19% approval rating. You're not going to paper over that by dressing all spiffy to make me think, oh, yeah, you're a serious person. You're in a suit and tie.
Frustrated with the Senate, with how it's operating, with how so many of its senators are corrupt or unable to do their business, but they don't want to have it be such an open admission of failure. And so the fact that Democrats are pushing Chuck Schumer.
So instead of fixing the corruption, let's just keep dressing nicely to try to trick people into thinking we're not corrupt. Oh, my God.
Revisit this, I think, indicates that this, probably via polling or through phone calls to the offices, is not going well with even Democrat constituents.
To me, the most problematic part of the policy revision is the way that in the original iteration handed down by Chuck Schumer, senators would no longer have to abide by a dress code on the Senate floor, but the American people would.
Well,
that seems to highlight all the bad things that people
kind of
say about Senate, the nature of the Senate.
Or it reminds people of all the problems they're having with the country right now, where it seems that there are two standards of justice, one for elites and one for other people.
I understand that criticism. The criticism of, well, hold on now. You're going to make it more lenient for the senators, but not lenient for regular people to go in there dressed normally? Yeah, I would say if you're going to make the standards more loose, make them loose for the public as well. I would agree with that. But this idea of, oh my God, a two-tier system of justice between elites and everybody else, that's true, but I'm happy to say we're seeing some movement in the other direction now to at least attempt to fix that. Charges against Trump, charges against Bob Menendez, charges against Hunter Biden. These are all things that are okay, well, at least in some instances, the elites are not getting away with their crimes. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Friends of the ruling regime, and one for people who are not. And so this just seemed to factor into that as well.
We made this point the other day that supporters of Fetterman say that him dressing casually and kind of roaming around the Senate is an indication that he's a happy fella. This indicates that he's recovering well, the fact that he can walk around in a hoodie and his shorts. But there were people like Ben Ray Lujan, Chris Van Hollen, Mark Kirk, Tim Johnson. All of them had similar medical problems to that which John Fetterman did, and they continued to wear coat and tie.
I'm actually worried that it's the opposite of him being in a particularly good disposition. This is someone who not too long ago was hospitalized for some of his mental health issues. It is common, and I say this with no judgment because I've experienced this myself as well, that when you're having bouts of depression or other issues, it can affect your ability to get up, get dressed, get showered, get out there. And I hope that Senator Fetterman, I think a lot of people are like, talking about this, but I hope that the people close to him love him enough to get him the help that he needs to make sure that he is up for this. Doesn't seem like he's able to really handle some of these duties, and maybe Chuck Schumer, rather than changing dress code policy ostensibly to help him out, maybe should think about whether he's providing the help he really should be.
Fake, faux concern for Fetterman. I don't care if it's a sign of him being happy or it's a sign of him being sad. That has no bearing on whether or not the policy itself makes sense and is reasonable. Those things are not connected whatsoever. Even if it is because, oh my God, he's dressing like this because he's sad, it's like, okay, let homie be sad. Because by the way, look, what's missing in this entire conversation? Voting record. Like I just told you about Joe Manchin, he could wear a suit and tie every single day of his goddamn life, but it's his fault that child poverty spiked 40%. Doesn't matter if you dress in gold robes. That's not going to make you a more serious person. Somebody could go in there wearing a bikini or wearing some BDSM leather gear, and if they vote in the other direction to fix child poverty, they would be better. Okay, but look, we're just getting warmed up here because now we have these idiots, and they're even worse than what we just watched on this issue.
For the record, I said that John Fetterman's not a hottie, not John Levine, but John Levine actually looks...
I should set this up for you. So this guy right here is wearing a hoodie and shorts, and he decided, I'm going to try to go to the nicest restaurants in New York City dressed like John Fetterman to see how they react. So right-wing guy trying to own John Fetterman. Haha, isn't he a slob? Isn't he stupid? And look at how Fox reacts.
More put together than even Fetterman.
Because his sweatshirt fits.
Right.
Right.
His shorts fit.
But if any of my kids came down the stairs and said, I'm going to mass like this, I'd be like, get back upstairs and get dressed. And it just shows respect for where you're going. You're going to God's house. In this case, you're going to the people's house. And this is what John Fetterman thinks of the people.
No, he's just a slob. He's a slob who got elected as a zombie in Pennsylvania, and now he's a senator, and everyone knows it's a joke. He even knows it's a joke. His family knows it's a joke. The Democrat Party looks like a joke for putting him on the dais in that outfit, and we look like a joke as a country.
How incredibly elitist is this overly hair-gelled goon, Peter Hegseth, talking right now? Who cares how this dude dresses? Who cares? Apparently he does. Apparently he does. There's more anger and vitriol over John Fetterman's basketball shorts and hoodie than there is over the 98th scandal about the Supreme Court being deeply, deeply corrupt. There's more anger over this than Donald Trump's 91 criminal charges and the fact that he tried to steal the election. It just goes to show you how they think. And again, you can't say, oh, I'm for regular people, I'm for normal people, I'm for the average Joe and Jane, I'm for the working man. And also, by the way, you're disgusting and a slob and a zombie and embarrassing if you dare to look normal.
You could say it's just a dress code, but it's indicative of so much.
And shame on his wife for not telling him to spiff it up if he doesn't have the judgment, in many cases, maybe even the mental state to know what's appropriate or not. That's the job of him and also his wife.
He figures out how to shave everything on his head except for this. Yeah. If you can do that, you can probably put on a tie.
Put on a tie and a shirt.
Just saying.
Even just a shirt and pants. Put on some pants.
So I say that a lot.
It's always a good...
You put on some pants?
Can you just put on some pants?
Okay. I got another example for you here. So the New York Post, this is them tweeting about what that guy did, going to all the nice restaurants dressed like Fetterman in New York City. The Post, apparently the guy works for the New York Post. The Post tried eating at New York City's finest restaurant dressed like Senator John Fetterman, see how it went. Of course, it was, I'm sure they tried to kick him out or whatever, say, oh, you can't be here like that. And I love this point from this Twitter user here. None of the right's cynical populist appeals can disguise their foundational belief in an elite class that is meant to rule and a lower class that must be subjugated. Just the appearance of a vulgar everyman this near the levers of power is too much for them to handle. True. It's true, man. Look, my ideal scenario would be they still have to wear their suit and tie, but they have to wear logos of all of their donors. Because then, sort of like NASCAR, because then everybody would know, oh, that's why they're voting that way on that bill. They're bought by the big banks, right? Oh, that's why they're in favor of that policy. They took all that money from Raytheon. That would be my ideal scenario. Because then, it becomes more embarrassing. Maybe we'd be more likely to do some anti-corruption laws to make it so that you get rid of the patches because you're not taking money from these terrible interests. But in lieu of that, do I have an issue with the dress code? Of course not. Of course not. I have an issue with how they vote. They could dress like furries on the floor of the Senate as long as they're actually improving problems. I'd be cool with it. So it shows you where their outrage is, right? This is what they're thinking about. This is what they care about. So don't give me I'm like the everyman nonsense. No, you're not. You have a seething hatred and disdain for the everyman, even one that went through real physical woes, even one who had a stroke, even one who went through a bout of severe depression. It's all the talk about all the things that don't matter and not a single peep about the voting record, because when it comes to the voting record, he blows every single Republican out of the water. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.